For my presentation, I've decided to study the Made in China 2025 initiative. For my paper and presentation title, I went with Beyond the Factory Floor, the MIC25 Revolution. Before I get into my presentation, I just want to give a bit of a layout. I'm going to start with my research question, then move on to an introduction of the Made in China 2025 initiative, followed by my literature review and data source descriptions. Then I'll go to my findings, and finally I'll end with my conclusion. My research question for this project was, what is the Made in China 2025 initiative, and what are China's reasons for implementing it? As I studied this topic, I realized that it's most easily understood when I go through the 5 W's plus how. So who, what, when, where, why, and how. I'm going to start with who, where, and when because they're easiest to answer. I'm sure you can guess that the who is China, or the Chinese government, which is the CCP. The CCP is said to have brought China out of the century of humiliation. And with this initiative, they wish to reassert their competency to the masses. Where, I'm sure you can guess again, is Made in China, featuring the title, so it's taking place in China. When? From 2015 to 2050, roughly. Some people say 2049 because of the 100th anniversary of the People's Republic of China, but it just depends on who you ask. So, like I said, it started in 2015, that's when it was first announced. The end of their first phase, in 2025, they wish to get their foot in the door and really start upgrading their manufacturing. By the end of phase 2 in 2035, they want to become a front runner in these sectors. By 2050, they are going to be a dominant world power in manufacturing. This is meaning they're going to be challenging westernized countries for their domain of high-value technology and goods. So what is the Made in China 2025 initiative? This is China's blueprint for advancements in manufacturing technology for the future. Within this plan, they are hoping to shift their focus from low-value goods to high-value goods. In the past, everyone's known China as, oh, where was that made? Probably China. Now they're going to be trying to switch that. So where was that high-value good made? Hopefully in China. Next, they want to encourage more Chinese innovation while decreasing dependency on foreign technology. This means they want to be the ones creating the technology, having the property rights for, not the ones borrowing or leasing technological information from other countries. The how of this program is a top-down approach. So all of the information and decision and choices are coming from the higher-ups, and it's trickling down to provincial and local governments to control the direction and speed and growth of this project. The government is also encouraging the upgrade and following of this plan to Chinese companies by providing government subsidies, low-interest loans, and generally just favoring domestic companies over foreign ones. The why of this plan, why it was implemented, comes into play with the second part of my research question. There are so many reasons to why China implemented this, but the 3 on the screen are just the ones that I found most influential. Starting with historical circumstances, like I said before, China was late to industrialization. They didn't begin industrializing until the 1950s, whereas most developed countries at the time were already completely industrialized. They started in the 1800s, so China was very far behind in that regard. They also had very little focus on research and development, especially after industrialization. A lot of westernized countries, once they had industrialized, were heavily focused on research and development, developing their own technologies that they could then sell to other people in other countries. So they've always been focused on high-value goods, where in comparison, China has not, which has given them the title of being the world's factory. They took advantage of their abundant, cheap labor force and used it to their advantage. They specialized in specific parts of production, and this dependency on low-value goods, however, has put them in a bit of a tricky spot, which is why there's a need for the Made in China initiative. Secondly, the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. Chinese President Xi Jinping, he believes that the century of humiliation was a smirch on national pride, and there's a need to get back to the standard that China was at prior to said century. This is his overall goal, and it plays along well with the goals for the Made in China 2025 initiative. He wishes to get back to this state of glory for the Chinese nation through increasing human capital by providing better education, more learning opportunities, and whatnot. He also wants to upgrade the export structure. Like I said several times, the upgrading from low value to high value goods, that's what he means. He wants to upgrade this export structure to make them more productive. And again, productivity is another thing that he's really looking to increase. Finally, economic stagnation. We saw that in 1978, when China first opened its economic doors, what have you, to the world market, they saw a massive amount of growth and participation in the economy. However, in recent years, that number has significantly decreased. It went from 10% to roughly 6.6%. And in 2012, people were saying that China's economy had become stagnant. One thing that they are fighting is the middle income trap. So when countries become middle income status, that means they're making middle income level pay. To get to the high level income, which you see in most developed countries, China needs to shift from the low to high value products. This is how they get out of the middle income trap and how they move towards more development and success. Another reason for their economic stagnation is the increasing manufacturing cost. In the past years, they've seen a higher demand for better pay, better working qualities, better conditions, and whatnot, along with demands for higher quality goods from the growing middle class. They no longer want the cheap Chinese products that they're known for. They want to push to have more higher quality goods that all the other developed countries that they see have. I obtained all of my resources from either JSTOR or Google Scholar, starting with the Made in China 2025 Poised for Success. It's a scholarly article by people who know what they're talking about and are well-renowned in their field. So I got a lot of good information from this. It was more well-rounded, talking about the project as a whole rather than focusing on one specific part. Next, Made in China 2025 and the Future of American Industry. This was a research report, and it was actually a speech given in the Senate, in the US Senate, talking about how the Made in China initiative would affect the US industry. Next, China's Global Power and Development, the Made in China 2025 policy. Again, another scholarly article. This one was talking specifically about how the Made in China initiative would change China. Next, Made in China 2025, the making of high-tech superpower and consequences for industrial countries. This research report was 76 pages long and had so much information, it was crazy. They did the most in-depth research and had so much information jam-packed into that they really covered most everything about the project. Lastly, I'm not going to attempt to say her name because I know I will get it wrong, but she is an economist and professor at Vassar College. She made a video talking about Made in China 2025, simply what the reasons were for implementation and what it was in general. So after researching and talking and learning about this project, I've realized a few implications for China and a few implications for the world. For China, they're going to see increased capabilities, whether this is through manufacturing, innovation, decreasing the dependency on other countries. They are going to have increased capabilities to really challenge the social hierarchy of the world. Because they're skeptical, some people are skeptical about China's ability to do an industry-wide upgrade. Most people believe that China will come out of this having a handful of national champions who can actually produce the high-level goods that China's talking about. There is also a possibility for major offshoring out of China. Some people are looking for other developing countries with low costs of labor and production because of China's increasing demands, Chinese workers' increasing demands for better pay, better working conditions, and whatnot. Implications for the world. The world is looking at threats to their technological dominance. For as long as anyone can remember, they were on top, meaning the US, Europe mostly. Now China, with this increasing capability of theirs, there's going to be an increasing competition. They're going to be able to fight and put up a battle with those other more stable, structured countries. There's also been some little bit of violations of the WTO fair trade agreements by China. They have been known in these past few years to favor their domestic companies over foreign for investment and basic participation in the economy. The world's countries are going to be looking at a loss of business. Those that are, especially the ones that are offshoring into China for their manufacturing, they are definitely looking at a loss of business, especially as China begins to favor their domestic companies more. Lastly, for economics, a lot of people are concerned about excess capacity, which is simply just China flooding the global market. People believe that if China does this, the dollar will become less. In conclusion, the Made in China 2025 initiative is a comprehensive plan put forth by China to increase their manufacturing capabilities by having major upgrades, increasing and encouraging Chinese innovation, while reducing the technological dependence on foreign technology. A few reasons that this has come to be and why China wants to implement this plan is the historical circumstances, like we've seen, and the revival of the Chinese state, along with recent years of economic stagnation. Overall, this plan is broad and all-encompassing, and I think in the next few years, the US is going to be looking at another global hegemon to fight and to put up a fight against. I think they've been unchallenged for quite a long time, and I don't think that's going to be the case for much longer.